Recently, as I like to do, I was out on a hike, like many of my sermons start. As I walked down the trail, my attention was grabbed by a whole lot of noise happening in the trees overhead. I looked up, and high up in a cedar tree, saw several crows flying around the tree and making dramatic swoops toward the tree and then pulling back up quickly. They were making an impressive amount of racket. And as they squawked and croaked, I noticed even more crows were joining the melee. I peered up through the cedar fronds and caught a glimpse of something moving just ever so slightly in the branches. The crows kept up their squawking, calling more friends over, and yet continued to dive bomb that one area. And then I saw more movement between the fronds, and I realized that I was seeing large wings unfold. And then an eagle launched itself from its hiding spot and into the air. The crows went mad. They squawked ever more frantically and continued dive bombing over. This time, it was directly over top of the eagle as she spread her wings and flew. The crows kept swooping and squawking, circling, and surrounding the eagle even as she flew away. She flew higher and higher into the sky as they trailed her. When I last could see her, she still had about 3 or 4 crows working together to harass her out of their neighborhood, away from their nests and from their young. I'm sure you all have seen this before. Sometimes instead of the crows doing the harassing, it's the crow being harassed by scores of LBJs, little brown jobbies, twitter and flutter about, sounding the alarm, winging around the crow's head, and escorting it out of their tree, their garden, their home. It's a scene that always stops me in my tracks. The determination of these birds, their courage at taking on a predator that significantly outclasses them in size and danger, the way they work together, each taking their turn at the risky dive. Did you know that an eagle can simply do an about face and take one of them out with her magnificent claws? It is a risky endeavor. The way that they use any tool at their disposal, gathering the flock to protest loudly, flying up behind it and grabbing at the aggressor's tail feathers, dive bombing it, pecking or poking it with their smaller talons, even releasing their bowels over the bird to gum up the feathers of its wings. It is incredible to witness their fierce resistance to being surveilled, their work together to protect each other and their endangered families. It seems beyond imagination that a sparrow could take on a crow or a raven, but they do, and they succeed. They chase those hungry crows right out of their neighborhoods. As we have journeyed these 6 weeks through Lent, we've been accompanied by this incredible swirl of birds that you see hanging here, this beautiful art installation by our talented worship team. It is a bevy, as they are called, or a flight of doves. These doves are related to the primary image for our Lenten theme, which is focused on the importance of the work of imagination in bringing God's dream for our world into fruition. That image, that key image or logo, can be seen over the piano behind Kathy's head. And I'm going to pause for a moment to allow our tech team to focus in a camera on it. Done. The image is of a dove screeching into the scene, claws extended, breaking apart a golden crown of power and might. The logo for the work of imagination tells an important story. The dove is not gentle. It moves with power. It disrupts what harms. It breaks the crown of empire, of power, of violence, of human kings. And while we only see one dove here caught in its mid-descent, what we can imagine is that this dove is not working alone. This dove is a part of a bevy of doves, each doing what they can to disrupt the harm of the predator, to break the hold of its might on their community. That moment that the logo captures when the dove is finally able to break apart the power, it is a dramatic moment. Just about as dramatic as it is to watch a larger bird being chased out by a team of much tinier ones. But that dramatic moment of the logo was able to unfold. The crown finally breaks apart, not because of this one perfect hit by this one perfect dove, but because of many other moments that preceded it. The crown's break was set in motion when the doves began to call to one another. Hoo, hoo, hoo. I don't know, what do doves do? I can do a good crow. Hoo, 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 hoo. Call to one another and to gather in a bevy to work together. When the doves begin to circle the crown, when they begin their courageous dive bombs, it would have seemed beyond imagination that it could be done. The resurrection story that is a part of our faith, that is at the heart of our faith, is also a story that is beyond imagination. A teacher, Rabboni, as Mary named him, walked the earth, gathering disciples and followers through his acts of love, mercy, and healing. The powers that be, the crown of empire, the gold of hoarding power, the jewels of status quo, they were threatened by this extravagant love without boundaries. They knew that they could not maintain their hold over the people if the people's chains were broken. So they executed him publicly, painfully. When Mary arrives that first Easter morning, she arrives expecting death, an affirmation of the end of things, the death of that internal fire they felt as they listened to their rabbi teach, the hope that they felt as crowds swelled with new faces, the work of their imaginations as they dared to dream something different could be possible for them. Instead, Mary encounters a deeply disturbing sight: a tomb emptied of Jesus' body. The two male disciples that she calls in her panic arrive, see, wonder, and then leave. But Mary, like a sparrow who will not give up, stays, keening with grief, seeking to reciprocate care for her teacher even in death. Mary stays, circling. It is then that she sees the two angels, and then, impossibly, her teacher, somehow beyond imagination, restored to life. And he calls her name, Mary. Don't hold on to me, for I have not yet ascended to Abba God. Rather, go to the sisters and brothers and tell them I'm ascending to my Abba and to your Abba, my God and your God. And what does Mary do? She races to tell the others. She doesn't stop to puzzle it through. She doesn't pause to pepper him with questions of like, what is happening? She doesn't stop to catch her breath and check her sanity. She races, feet flying, dust churning around her sandals toward the other. She calls as loudly as she can, I have seen the teacher. And I can't help but think of the birds who first catch sight of that eagle or that crow in their midst, who immediately give away their own position of safety to call out for the others, regardless of the outcome for themselves. Mary races for the others. The rabbi tells her, go tell the others, gather my flock. Because we do this hard and holy work of breaking the crown of empire, of power, of might, not alone, but together. I cannot explain the mystery of the resurrection to you this morning. It is something that is beyond imagination. But so too is the way that tiny sparrows work together to drive out the threat that endangers their community, their neighbors, their young. Resurrection faith is not about certainty, but about turning again and again toward life, toward each other, toward our siblings, tripping up on our feet to bring them good news, toward believing the power of our work together. Resurrection faith is about turning ourselves toward living hope, even when all hope seems lost. The resurrected Jesus will stay with the disciples for another 40 days after his first appearance on Easter. And during that time, he neither seeks vengeance for his suffering or of those of his people, nor does he move to violently overthrow the Romans, nor does he announce his intention to ascend an earthly throne. Although I'm kind of guessing that with the power of resurrection comes power enough to do any of those things. What does he do with this power? He asks Mary to gather his people, to pull together the flock. And then he spends time with them, eating with them, teaching, and sharing his message one last time, passing his work on to his disciples. Because the work that he started, it's not yet finished. God's dream for God's world is not yet realized. And Easter morning, it is now up to us to continue it. This Easter morning, like the birds who band together, may we walk hand in hand into the places of death and destruction in our land, where empire believes that it will have the last word. And like the determined bevy of doves, using whatever tools they have working together, may we gum up the workings of empire as it seeks to unfurl its wings of harm. May we swoop and dive bomb and swirl, take breaks and take turns and take risks until we descend like the dove of peace, fierce, protective, determined, carrying within us the unrelenting love of the risen Christ, refusing to let go, refusing to give up, working together as a flock that overwhelms until we break the crown of harm and power. Easter people keep walking toward what empire calls impossible, because we follow a teacher, the risen Christ, who leads the way beyond possibility, beyond imagination. Hallelujah.